Back in the present, the click of Maya's suitcase zipper sounded like a gunshot in the quiet apartment. She stood up, pulling the handle of the suitcase out. She looked around the kitchen one last time. There were no tears left to cry. They had spent them all over the last 3 weeks of quiet conversations, logistical planning, and the painful acknowledgement that they loved each other, but love was simply not enough to fix a broken foundation. "I left my spare key on the counter," Maya said softly. Leo nodded. He walked over to her, his movements slow. For a moment, he wanted to grab her hand, to beg her to try one more time, to promise he would change. But he looked at her face and saw relief mixed with her sadness. Forcing her to stay would be an act of selfishness, not love. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. It was the most honest embrace they had shared in years, a hug of surrender, acknowledging the end. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Maya," he whispered into her hair. "I hope you do too, Leo," she replied, pulling back. She turned, wheeled her suitcase to the front door, and stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. The door clicked shut behind her. Leo walked over to the window and watched as her small figure emerged from the building's entrance. She opened her umbrella, stepped into the rain, and walked toward the main street. He took a deep, shaky breath. The apartment felt incredibly empty, and the silence was deafening, but for the first time in years, the air didn't feel heavy. It just felt like a clean slate. The rain in the city didn't fall. It drifted, a heavy gray mist that blurred the streetlights into soft, amber smudges. Inside the third-floor apartment, the silence was just as heavy. Leo sat at the kitchen island, his fingers tracing the rim of a ceramic mug that had long gone cold. Across the room, Maya was packing a suitcase. It wasn't a dramatic, angry packing. There was no slamming of drawers or throwing of clothes. Instead, her movements were calculated, almost clinical. She folded each sweater with precise, mechanical neatness. "You don't have to go tonight," Leo said, his voice barely cutting through the hum of the refrigerator. "It's late. The roads are terrible." Maya didn't stop folding. "If I don't leave tonight, Leo, we'll have the same conversation we had last night. And the night before that. I'm tired of hearing our own echoes." They had been together for 4 years. The first 2 had felt like a blur of shared laughter, late-night drives to nowhere, and a mutual understanding that felt unbreakable. They used to think they were invincible because they never fought. But they had mistaken silence for peace. The problems didn't start with a massive betrayal. They started with the things they chose not to say. Every time Leo suppressed his frustration about Maya's emotional distance, a brick went up. Every time Maya swallowed her resentment over Leo's passive-aggressive comments about her career choices, another brick followed. Now, a massive, invisible wall stood between them in the middle of their own living room. By the 3rd year, their relationship wasn't held together by love. It was held together by routine. It was easier to stay than to face the terrifying logistical and emotional nightmare of breaking up. They shared a lease, a dog named Buster, and a circle of friends who viewed them as the stable couple. But behind closed doors, they had mastered the art of coexisting without connecting. Leo started spending more time at the gym, pushing his limits until his muscles burned, using physical exhaustion to drown out the constant anxiety humming in his chest. He took creatine, monitored his macros, and focused entirely on goals he could actually control, because he couldn't control the sinking ship at home. Maya buried herself in her art curation. She stayed late at the gallery, volunteering for every exhibition, surrounding herself with vibrant, expressive art because her own personal life felt entirely devoid of color. One evening, Leo walked into the kitchen to find Maya staring at a broken glass on the floor. It had slipped from her hand. She wasn't crying. She was just staring at the shards. "I'll clean it up," Leo said, reaching for the broom. Don't touch it, Maya said quietly. Just leave it. It's like everything else in here. If we try to fix it, we'll just cut ourselves. Leo froze, the broom in his hand. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the profound exhaustion etched into her face. They weren't fighting anymore because they had both given up the hope that fighting would change anything. Understand how they got to this rainy Tuesday. You had to look back 6 months. It was Maya's 26th birthday, and Leo had booked a table at a quiet, upscale Italian restaurant. It was supposed to be a celebration, a turning point to fix the unspoken distance growing between them. Instead, it became a monument to their disconnect. The pasta is good, Leo had said, shifting uncomfortably in his button-down shirt. It is, Maya replied, offering a tight smile before looking back down at her phone. A work email had caught her attention, but truth be told, the screen was a shield. It was safer to look at an inbox than to look into Leo's eyes and acknowledge the emptiness there. Can you put that away? Just for tonight? Leo's voice had a sharp edge to it. Maya sighed, setting the phone face down. Leo, I'm handling a crisis at the gallery. I can't just switch off. You haven't switched on for me in 6 months, he snapped, immediately regretting the volume of his voice as a waiter glanced over. He leaned in, whispering harshly. We live in the same space, Maya, but I feel like I'm living with a ghost. You don't ask about my day. You don't even look at me when I speak. And what about you? Maya's voice was dangerously calm, a contrast to his heat. When you ask about my day, you're just waiting for your turn to complain about yours. You don't want a partner, Leo. You want an audience. The rest of the dinner was spent in a suffocating silence. They didn't order dessert. They rode home in a taxi with their heads turned toward opposite windows, watching the city lights blur past, both of them trapped in a prison of their own making. The actual breaking point happened 3 weeks before the rainy Tuesday. It was midnight, and a sudden thunderstorm was rattling the window panes. Buster, their golden retriever, was whimpering under the bed. Leo was trying to comfort the dog when Maya walked into the bedroom, her face pale. We need to talk, she said, the 4 most terrifying words in the English language. Leo stood up, wiping his dusty hands on his jeans. Can it wait until morning, Maya? I'm exhausted. No, she said, her voice trembling now, breaking through her usual icy exterior. Because tomorrow you'll go to work early, and then you'll go to the gym, and then you'll come home and pretend everything is fine. I can't do it anymore, Leo. This isn't a life. We are suffocating each other. I am trying, Leo shouted, his frustration finally boiling over. I bought the apartment we wanted. I support your career. I stay out of your way when you're stressed. What more do you want from me? I want you to see me, Maya cried out, tears finally spilling over her cheeks. Not the version of me you want to show off to your parents. Not the convenient roommate who splits the rent. I am lonely, Leo. I am so incredibly lonely when I am sitting right next to you. Leo felt a cold weight drop into his stomach. Her words tore through his anger, leaving a raw, aching truth. He realized that in his effort to avoid conflict, he had withdrawn his heart entirely. He had stopped trying to understand her, opting instead to protect himself from the pain of her rejection. They stood in the bedroom, the thunder booming outside, realizing that the foundation of their relationship had turned to dust long ago.